Greetings and a warm welcome from me, astrologer Patrick Arundell. Today, in the latest of my deep dive videos, I'm going to explore the journey of the fleet-footed messenger planet Mercury through the sign of Sagittarius. Now, Sagittarius is a fire sign, but it's also mutable, so it flexes, and its journey begins on the 10th of November at 6:25 a.m. It goes on for 44 days in total, with an interlude of 21 days in the earth sign of Capricorn. Now, Mercury has particular ways of influencing things. I will share those with you, but also take a look at its rulership of the sign of Gemini, but also Virgo, two very different and contrasting energy sets. But Mercury is technically in detriment in Sagittarius. That doesn't mean to say there won't be opportunities, but there could be some challenges, not least when this event begins. Mercury is in a testing and abrasive right angle with the restrictive energies of Saturn. Now, I'm going to share all the timings with you, but then I will go through each of the 12 zodiac signs from Aries through to Pisces to give you a flavour of what you can expect from the perspective of your sun or your ascendant. If you are new to my channel, it's lovely to have you with us. If you notice, I do interact with comments on YouTube. People ask me questions about their natal chart positions. I try to answer each one. This is very much a community, so please feel very welcome to join us. If you're a returning visitor, great to have you with us once more. Your likes, comments, shares and subscriptions are genuinely appreciated, and all the kind comments I get encouraging me is something I really do thank you for. Now, year 2024 is racing towards us. If you're interested in making the transition from zodiac astrology, your sun sign, and embracing more serious astrology, if you'd like to understand what your personal transits will hold for year 2024 based on your unique birth data, if you share that with me, I will produce for you your forecast for the following year. You'll get the rest of this year, what's left, free. But also, in my special package, you'll get 30% off on your character analysis, your life roadmap, which helps you to get a much more intimate understanding of the patterns that are played out. But further to that, from now, you also get your year 2024 zodiac forecast written, your Chinese forecast for 24, and your Vedic Indian forecast written by my colleague Nishkal Chaya, who's worked with me for about 20 years. And all of that information is totally free if you buy a chart. Please see the link below for more. So Mercury moves for 44 days. With that interlude of 21 days in Capricorn. But what's really interesting is in year 2024, which Mercury begins the year in Sagittarius and in retrograde, it's going to go back into Sagittarius on November the 2nd, 2024 as well. But we're going to have a series of fire Mercury retrogrades. There's only 10 days in August where Mercury inverts out of the sign of Leo and into the sign of Virgo in a retrograde. So that's a change of dimension, because over the last year it's all been about Earth, which in the tarot is the pentacles, so very much about the coins, and of course we've seen a lot of energy around the cost of living and so forth. The year before we had a series of water retrogrades, so that's when we're coming out of the COVID crisis and the emotional impact of that. So Mercury and its themes, let's just have a little think about these. So Mercury governs communication, travel, distribution, technology, discussions, ideas, thought processes, information. And through its influence in Gemini, it's very quick-witted. It's a zippy influence and can be quite tricky. And it's very fluid because the sign of Gemini and Virgo are both mutable, so it does flow with things, can be changeable therefore. As I've said recently, it's androgynous, so perfect for the times that we live in. It can be very funny through Gemini, flexible, chatty, expressive, restless and inquiring. But what about its influence through Virgo? Very different. Precise, meticulous, discriminating, analytical, critical, probing, seeking tangible and workable information and solutions, because the host there is earthy, whereas the host of Gemini is airy. So now we've got this fiery influence, and Mercury is detrimented in Sagittarius because if we think about it, in Sagittarius it's opposite Mercury, but also a 90-degree angle to Virgo. So we've got a square and an opposition to the two planets that it rules. And just so you know, Mercury is exalted in the sign of Aquarius and also, of course, rules the second decan of that sign. But what about Sagittarius? Sagittarius is governed by Jupiter. Jupiter, for its rulership of Sagittarius, is distinct from its rulership of Pisces, traditional rulership of Pisces. It's very much about expansion. It's about travel. It's about the big picture, higher philosophies. Can be about the law. It can also be about international trade and distribution. Jupiter can be a lucky influence, and the confidence that Jupiter has often pays off, that self-belief, but sometimes Jupiter can trick us into promising more than we can realistically deliver. So one of the problems in this hot, dry and mutable sign is that Mercury can promote difficulties in concentration and also some boredom. The precision that Virgo energy gives to Mercury is lost because basically Sagittarius is not so interested in the detail. It's interested in the big picture. So that's where the low boredom threshold is. And it can be very, very restless because unless there is a sort of bigger purpose, Mercury loses power here. It's weakened. But the opportunities are superb if we want to think about setting up travel plans. We're looking to build up contacts, networks, and contracts. It's also wonderful if we want to think about philosophies, learn a foreign language, do trade with people crossing those borders and boundaries, and also very much about those higher values. So, but I think the Jupiterian energy is a big energy, and Mercury is very nimble and flexing through Gemini, but really does need that precision through Virgo. So in the big sign of Sagittarius, the mutability can make Mercury a bit sloppy, but a bit bored with the everyday stuff that Mercury through Gemini and Virgo is very good with, because Mercury in Gemini is the everyday conversations we have, text messages, emails and so forth, and Virgo is where we make things work. And in Sagittarius that all loses a little bit of impetus. But I still feel that the bubbliness that Jupiter has and that potential to be quite upbeat and a jovial influence can also see our communication step up. But of course, once Mercury starts to retrograde, we could struggle with that lack of concentration around the details. So for example, if we're buying something and we don't read the small print properly, or we're buying something online, and we've got to be so careful these days with all these scams going around. Often, people hundreds and thousands of miles away will be ringing local numbers or sending text messages, and there can be some real gotchas. So that's the kind of stuff that we've really got to be vigilant around. I'm just sharing with you on the screen the event chart from a zodiac perspective with the ascendant nominally at 0 degrees Aries, so we can relate to the overall chart. So you can see that Mercury's in house 9 in Sagittarius, but the real cruncher is that angle to Saturn in house 12. Now we have a lot of inflammatory language goes on in modern society, particularly through micro sites such as X, Twitter, and so forth. And there's a lot of inflammatory language, a lot of grand claims, very Sagittarian, but not always backed up by facts. It's more about very emotive opinions. So with Saturn, the planet of steadiness, restraint, wisdom, caution, tradition, in the 12th house, important to understand that our words can have an impact on our own psychology. If we stay in some way or another in touch with some kind of decency and truth about the factual matters, we can avoid dogmatic discussions. But Sagittarius is a sign that can get into big debates. If you've ever been in a British bar with a bunch of Sagittarians, it really is quite a sight where everyone will have these competing opinions in a very sort of trenchant way. So I feel that Mercury squaring with Saturn, obviously Mercury can be about travel, distribution, contracts, conversations, blah de blah. So we need to be aware of what we can't see, Saturn in the 12th house. So I don't think this is a great period, this particular Mercury transition, to indulge in any kind of gossip. I think for all of us, we can try and keep it a bit cleaner, try and find out the best side of ourselves, so we aspire to the better part of our nature with Mercury in Sagittarius. That's going to be a good thing. But if there have been past painful conversations, I don't necessarily think we can just expect people to immediately forget them or heal from them. So if there has been unfairness in any way, particularly around the international scene, Saturn is saying, look, that those attitudes, those approaches will be held to account. It may not happen within this particular time frame, but I think this season of fiery Mercury retrogrades that we're entering over the next year is going to see a lot more vulnerable, outspoken pushback against claims that are made without too much substance. Now, in terms of the timing, the pre-shadow period begins on the 25th of November, but it's on the 1st of December that Mercury actually moves into the sign of Capricorn. Here it's much more pragmatic. It's brilliant for business, and people who do well in commerce often can have Mercury in Capricorn, but it goes into the retrograde on December the 13th in Capricorn, but inverses back into Sagittarius on the 23rd of December. Now on the 1st of January, and this is really, really important, when we have the solar return for the whole year for us all collectively, Mercury is aligned with Mars in Sagittarius, but in retrograde. Now Mars in Sagittarius is fantastic for sports people with a real passion for moving around and being very physically adventurous and energetic. But I feel that Mercury being so close to Mars could see us through this next year experience quite a lot of difficulties around distribution, transport systems, whether it's overloads on computer systems, could be industrial disputes, because of Sagittarian energy is very much about the rights and wrongs in a way, but it can be a little bit dogmatic. So when we put Mars in the picture as well, it can inflame the desire to have a point of view. That's not to say that anyone who expresses that point of view is wrong. It's just what we can expect over the following 12 months. So I feel that there will be disruption around transport systems, whether it's food distribution, whether it's personal transportation, whether it's the distribution of goods. The international realm of distribution, I feel, will get disrupted. And you'd have to say, because of the fieriness of Sagittarius, will that be because of fires in some way? We had I don't know if you recall when we had the problems with the volcano in Iceland, which closed down all the air traffic control in Europe, and no planes were flying for about a week because there was a lot of ash that was blowing up into the air. So that kind of thing is the type of flavour of what we might expect. But on the 2nd of January, the retrograde in Sagittarius actually ends. And on the 14th of January, Mercury rejoins Capricorn, but it won't be till the 21st of January that Mercury emerges from the post-retrograde shadow. That's an interesting day because that will be the day the Sun and Pluto move from Capricorn into the sign of Aquarius on Pluto's birthday, would you believe? So that gives you a little bit of a context of things. And then we're going to have, as I mentioned before, on November the 2nd, 2024, Mercury will come back to Sagittarius, but it will go into another retrograde. So we have a retrograde at the start of the year and the end of the year with Mercury in Sagittarius. Now I'm just going to go through each of the 12 signs to give you a little bit of an insight of what you can expect over the next 44 days. And please stay with me for that. So Aries, for you, that passion you have to break out, do things a little bit differently, travel to places that really please your senses, where you may take in a little bit of local history, philosophy, customs, enjoy mixing and mingling with people that stimulate you and switch you on. But if you are thinking of doing some higher education or some professional training, or you want to do a correspondence course or learn a language, this is a glorious opportunity to engage with that. It's just that the retrograde that's coming suggests that there could be some distractions, and it will be very important if you are looking to go into some kind of situation where you do need to have discussions, and there may be a legally binding dimension to those discussions, that you do proceed with a degree of care. So Taurus, for you, Mercury moving into Sagittarius is house 8, which has a flavour of Scorpio in a way, in the sense that Mercury dons its detective mac, it's diving deep. It's not so interested about what's being said through its transition through the sign of Scorpio, which is the 7th house of relating. It's much more interested about what people really mean. But that exaggeration that can be such an issue with the sign of Sagittarius is something you should bear in mind. So if you're discussing financial services, you're thinking of buying a pension or selling or buying stocks and shares, precision will be really, really important. So Gemini, for you, of course, Mercury is your ruler, and in the sign of Sagittarius, it's all about relationships. So whilst it's been going through Scorpio, there probably has been a few brittle moments. Perhaps someone's been a bit irritable or picky, and you have an opportunity with Mercury and Sagittarius to try to relate to one another. And the best way that we all can sharpen up on is improving our listening skills. We live in a world where lots of people want to have an opinion, not so many people want to have a proper discussion. That's the opportunity that comes with Mercury and Sagittarius. If you do want to improve any kind of relationship, tuning in, being a bit more detached if someone sees something differently, not taking it quite so personally, will be a good thing to do. Now Cancer, for you, Mercury moves into house 6, so it's been very expressive, very playful. Your sense of humour has probably been much to the fore of late. Now it's asking you to get down to brass tacks, sort things out. Now you're a pretty dialed in person when it comes to organisation. That's my experience of Cancerian people. But everybody can find some kind of marginal gains to improve things, whether it's around our diet, our sleeping, perhaps around the actual nutrition, the amount of exercise we get. Perhaps it's to do with a job. You know, you need to feel that a job has a meaning to it. And the 6th house likes to help people. So if you're in a job which feels a bit remote, you might start thinking about applying for something different where you can get more stuck in to provide that assistance to other folks. Now Leo, Mercury moving into the 5th house is absolutely brilliant for this time of year because it can be very social, very charismatic and extremely witty. All of the things that you are already. So just expect that that side of your nature is going to be amplified in a really positive way. But if you are single and you'd like to interact more and have some kind of connection in terms of the romantic sphere, the best way to do it is definitely to get out and about and socialise. Now obviously because Mercury can influence technology, sharing information and using dating apps could be something that you could benefit from, but I feel your natural warmth, affection and gregariousness come out best in face-to-face situations. So even if you're just meeting up with a group of friends, that can be a way to really relax, enjoy a shared hobby, and then you can have some natural conversations developing which could prove to be really interesting. Now Mercury moving into Sagittarius for you, Virgo, is asking you to think about home, family and emotions. But the 3rd house where Mercury has been had that flavour of Gemini, so you may have found yourself being quite revved up recently with lots of nervous energy. If you are someone who's interested in starting a home-based business, Mercury moving through Sagittarius can be very good, particularly if you're using technology to reach a wide audience around the world. But again, it's about making sure the details are right, not rushing things. Also, Mercury in the 4th house can see us circulating our thinking around our feelings rather than actually saying how we feel. So our thoughts can almost become a little bit obsessive, so just be conscious of that. Libra, Mercury moving into the 3rd house really has a flavour of Gemini. Sagittarius is big and it's proud, and Gemini is quick-witted and can turn on a sixpence. So you're going to find that life's going to pick up speed as this month goes on. And this is the first tranche of that energy where you're going to find that things become much quicker. There's going to be lots of ping pong text messages and emails going. It's going to be really exciting and stimulating. But it's also important to make sure that what we say with Mercury in the 3rd house is what we mean, not just being a bit more frivolous, which Mercury Gemini energy can be. Scorpio, for you, Mercury making the transition out of your sign and into Sagittarius suggests if you've been working on something, particularly with the passion that's been developing in Scorpio recently with the Sun and Mercury, but also Mars, your traditional ruler, all together, then this is a fantastic opportunity to take an idea or a strand that's really been intriguing you and to make it more substantive, to try and get some kind of base and foundation down. You could also find yourself thinking a lot more about your values. Everyday money can also be something that you're grappling with in a more intent way over the next few weeks. Sagittarius, Mercury moving into your sign is definitely a good thing because it's bringing you into the moment. Mercury in the 12th house can promote a degree of anxiety and also can see us feeling a bit withdrawn from others, but feeling that no one's been in touch with us. It's very, very easy to get into that dimension with Mercury in the 12th house. Mercury into your sign helps you to come into the present. It's not going to be a complete transition at this stage because we've still got the Scorpio new moon to go through. And with Mars in your 12th house, that in itself can be quite challenging. But you're certainly on the way to the first stage of the process. And the last 10 days of this month really are going to see you come in much more into your own. But it is important because Mercury is challenged by Saturn as this period begins, that you are aware that your need to express your individuality needs to work for you in terms of your emotional needs as well. And that's not always something that any of us finds easy to marry. You know, how many times do we hear people say, "How are you?" "Oh, absolutely fine." But we might have an issue going on in our life at that time that we're not actually fine. I think it's a particularly British thing, to be fair, but that kind of dimension may be something that you have to resist through this period. So Capricorn, Mercury's moved into your 12th house, but you do have that solid energy still in your 11th house, which is very sociable. So what you're going to be asking over the next few weeks is, who can I really rely upon and trust? Because actually I feel there could be a bit of got to be really honest, a bit of two-faced stuff going around somewhat. You may be about to find out in the rest of this month who you can really rely upon in your circle and who is more free and easy with their affection. So fair weather friends, I'm afraid, are going to become more to the fore in the next few weeks. But what you can do with Mercury in the 12th house is get much more closely in touch with your own inner psychology, understand some of your motivations and the motivations of others. And if you can keep a bit of detachment, that would be helpful, because Mercury in the 12th house is detrimented in the sign of Pisces, which has a 12th house flavour, just like it's detrimented in Sagittarius. So the host, Saturn, in a right angle, 90 degree with the position of Mercury in Sagittarius, is not mutually receptive. So your ruler is causing some damage here, to be honest. Maybe it's to do with your conservatism, maybe your lack of trust in certain people is the issue. Maybe you need to accept that some people don't see things the same as you. You may have different players who have different roles in your life, and not have too high expectations about what every person can mean to you. So Aquarius, Mercury moving into Sagittarius is very bubbly. It's also got a flavour of your sign because it's the 11th house. Sagittarius and Aquarius energy have commonalities in the sense of really being very much freedom lovers, and also can dislike constraints around the right to have an opinion, particularly when fairness is at the core of the discussion. So you have an opportunity to interact, network, build up alliances, but I think initially it's going to be very much about your professional situation. Later in November, there's going to be much more focus on your friendships and connecting with people, meeting up, going out and having fun. But initially I feel that you will start to over the next few weeks get in touch with people, and it could be about your career, job applications, doing a presentation, trying to get more activity into your own personal business through contacts with people in positions of influence. So Pisces, Mercury moving to Sagittarius is right at the top of your chart, the 10th house, the most visible point. But of course it's clashing with Saturn right at the start of your sign. If you're born early in the sign of Pisces, you could feel a sense of inhibition, particularly if there's a job that you're attracted to, but maybe a lack of self-confidence could stop you going for it. One of the things that Mercury in Sagittarius can push you to do is to actually try to think up the skill set you've got. But also, if you've got any kind of imposter syndrome going on in your personality, really work hard at overcoming that. Now, Mercury in the 10th house, Mercury is about knowledge in Sagittarius, and the 10th house is about ambitions, goals, and our visibility to the wider public. So if you feel it would be helpful to you to learn new skills in order to adapt past experiences into new opportunities for employment, then go for it. But if you're born later in the sign of Pisces, certainly towards the end of Pisces, actually Mercury moving here can be really, really good for you, because it's going to be forging a much more amiable link. It's been a real pleasure being with you. Thank you so much for joining me. I would be so grateful for any likes, comments, shares or subscriptions. But please stay safe, take care, and goodbye for now.